You know, when reading a good book, that can get me on quite a loop, like a rabbit hole. It can get me to read other novels, but I have to be careful and I have to pace myself that I don't force myself to read because it's supposed to be fun. Army move south. Army move south, says Orskia, pointing over my shoulder, and hurry too. 4 days ago? 5, one of the other waiters corrects her. He slaps his thigh. Was they Anza broke her leg? Ah, 5 days ago. Where did they go? Asks the colonel, clearly put out by this revelation. He glances at me and drops his voice. There were no pertinent orders when I departed headquarters. Which was when? 18 days ago? Your people are in a big hurry. March quick, get on trucks and tanks. They're gone by nightfall. Zoom boom, one day, all gone. There was no orc attack? She points up at the sky but doesn't look. That happened the day before. Orskia looks away as another waster hurries through the fog. She bends to listen to a whispered message, the deliverer casting rapid glances back through the mists. Orskia straightens, says something in return that I don't understand. Her two companions gather to her for a quick conversation before heading off into the gloom. Orcs are leaving Archeon, the waster tells us. Thousands. Driven out by the abyssal invaders, I say. That's how we ended up out here. There will be many more in the coming hours and days, adds Schaefer. And then the infernal servants will come after. I know this sounds strange, coming from me, but I'm tired of running, I say, looking from Schaefer to the miserable crowd behind us. A few nod. Others look scared enough to bolt into the smog at the quickest provocation. Nazareth gives an appreciative ripple of its lips, and a rumble of agreement emanates deep in the orc's chest. I mean, I continue, we need somewhere to take a breath and resupply. Work out our real options, I laugh. I wasn't talking about some stupid counterattack. There must be some Imperial forces remaining nearby, says the colonel. Orskia, do you have any kind of voxcaster or receiver? Voxbox? Yes, we have two. One with Nordus, other back at the camp. Okay, they go to the camp. So far, so far, I like the things that the desert people say. They say zoom boom, zoom and boom in one day. They say vox bucks. We have the vox bucks. They're pretty cool. It's hard for me to picture them as anything other than Telerans, but that's probably just due to my own lack of imagination and how I use the intellectual property of Games Workshop to like illustrate. I guess that's why Games Workshop, the Black Library books are so fantastic because they have this like standard template construct beneath them. Like a las gun is always a las gun. A corn berserker is always a corn berserker, and so since I know what those things are, and even if I get lost somewhere, I'll know what they function, what to expect of them. You know, I hear wasters contract their camps by the smell. This sparkling contribution to the sparse conversation comes from Nezer Arif, one of the hivers that first found me. He nudges me with his elbow. You know, on account of the stink they make. They're wearing rebreathers, I reply, shaking my head. Idiot. He falls silent, pouting. But I'm beyond caring about moody followers and mutinies, and being the Emperor Damn Chosen One. My legs ache. My back aches. I'm going to choke to death on dust if some painful violence isn't visited upon me in the next few hours. It would seem he has a point. I can't tell one way from the other. We could be walking in circles for all I know. The dunes all look the same, and the banks of ground hugging fog sometimes bring visibility down to just a few meters. Other times we can see 40. Other times we can see 2 or 300 meters, just an expanse of undulating gray and brown ash, indistinguishable from anywhere else we visited. After a few minutes, the colonel catches up with me, glaring daggers at the sand sucking at his boots, as if he could make the wastes part for him with raw anger. He hauls himself across the ash in defiance of the shifting slope, rather than working with it, which pretty much says all you need to know about Colonel Schaefer. It would not be wise to spend too much time with these thieves, he tells me, throwing a suspicious glance at our waster escorts. They will cut us loose as soon as they are threatened, or worse. You're the one that wanted a box caster. You're going to get one. What's the complaint about? The most temporary and pragmatic of alliances. Nothing more. As soon as we find out the location of the Imperial mustering point, these people are no more use to us. He drops his voice even further. The same is true of the orc and your deserter companions. They will cause trouble. We've got enough trouble as it is without picking fights amongst ourselves. He shakes his head and allows himself to fall back a few steps. Looking for better company, I hurry to catch up with Orska. Puffing hard to match her long, effortless strides, as it seems I'm thrashing knee deep through the sliding ash. I see the gleam of something on her wrist before it disappears into her cuff. That's your secret sense, isn't it? I say, nodding at her arm. Got yourself a navigation piece. She draws back the sleeve to show the wrist mounted auspex. The green screen is cracked and the casing heavily scuffed, but she touches a thumb to the activation stud and it quickly comes to life. 4 generations, the Dunseers of our people have this, she says proudly, turning it off again. All my mothers, and now to me. Duneseer. That's what you call? No. I am what you call Chief Scout? Vitya. The wise one is leader. But she die, as I say. We not choose new leader yet. Still sad for loss. Too soon. I can't think of anything to say about that, and we carry on in silence. In the absence of talking, now and then I catch a different noise, like the gurgle of some unseen pipeway or stream, or the crackle of some unknown substance just beneath the ash underfoot. I can hear changes in the wind too, different speeds and angles whistling and moaning over the drifts. In fact, it's like it sounds a lot like voices, distant howls and baying cries. Does it always sound this creepy out here? Orska stops and pulls back the hood of her cape, revealing her ear. No, she says. That is not the noise of the wastes. I do not know what that is. I do, but it takes me a moment before I can say it. The Neverborn, abyssal voices of nightmare. Maybe they're following us, or maybe they're everywhere. Maybe making guesses not good for anyone, she snaps, clearly on edge from this discovery. After a few moments, we crest the dune and suddenly find ourselves on the edge of the Wasters' camp. Camouflage sheeting and tents almost seamlessly blend almost seamlessly with the ash and grit. Carefully positioned poles create curves that mask lines of the tents against the bowl of the depression holding the encampment, while smaller biovacs are half dug into the ash itself, forming small caves and tunnels. Walk by just 40 meters away, and you'd see nothing. Whoever had the box set must have signaled ahead, because there's a welcome party awaiting us, weapons at the ready, while our escorts quietly move away, out of the firing line. I count 20 shrouded figures in the camp, all of them armed. The youngest must have been moved away for safety, infants with the older children for minders. So there's probably even more altogether. The tents I don't see seem to have the capacity for everyone. So I figured that either they've dug down into the dunes beneath those canopies, or there's a second, maybe even a third camp not far away. Orskia walks over to the closest group. None of them as tall as her, and has a brief conversation. One of those she meets raises a hand and then drops it, and the other wasters lower their weapons. About half of them turn away and set about their business, while a good number of those that found us drift off into the encampment. I spare a glance for Nazrek. The orc has been very quiet, bemused by everything that's happening, I think. It stands there, arms by its sides, shoulders sagging, gaze cast to the ground. There's none of the orc's usual latent belligerence. While Orskia continues her small conference with what I guess must be the ranking elders, I wander over to the Xenos warrior. Good? I ask. Not good, says Nazrek, rubbing a knuckle across his forehead. No green. Feel bad. Right. I'm not sure what to do. I've never had to handle a listless orc before. Keep out of trouble, but be ready for it. Nazareth gives a morose nod and then sits in a billow of ash. Wait here, it says. I'm not sure if I prefer this or 200 kilos of green skinned meanies always looking for the next fight. I'm used to a fist happy knucklehead, not so much the moping types. At least I'll know where to find the orc. While some of the wasters start handing out scarves, hoods, and masks, a charity I hadn't asked for or expected, Orskia introduces me and the colonel to Maxi, Elg, and Tormas, the three senior members of the group. Harla, Karst, and a few others tag along with us once they've received better protection against the harsh elements. I'm offered a jacket that must have been taken from the abandoned Imperial lines, thick camouflage material, reinforced at the elbows. A girl brings a couple of different helmets to try on. The first is a regulation Cadian style, but it's too big for me, and even with the chin strap cinched, it's as tight as possible. I eye the other offering with suspicion, a tall ceremonial helm covered with blue velvet, a pointed stud at the crest, and fur lining. Putting it on, it feels secure enough, but I feel like an idiot. I swap it for a cape and a hood instead, saying a quick prayer to the Emperor that I don't get hit in the head anytime soon. I sling the preferred water flask. I sling the preferred waster mask around my neck. No rebreather, just layers of filter material sandwiched between the rigid frame that looks a bit like a skull, enough to cover the mouth, ears, and tinted goggles to shield the eyes. We gather under one of the ash shades and share sips of a lukewarm beverage that tastes faintly of sweat, but I don't make any complaints. Tormas does most of the talking. A short but solidly built waster, his low Gothic is clipped and hurried, but he confirms that they only have spare clothes because they'd recently looted some of the Imperial positions. We're to remember the tribe's generosity, and I promise that I will. Schaefer raises the subject of the Vox set again, and Tormas nods and grins in reply. Yes, Chatterbox, this here. He leads us to the back of the tent, pulls back a rubberized sheet to reveal a tarnished, battered transmitter and receiver set. Given its lack of proper shell and size, I reckon it was taken from a vehicle, maybe a crashed aircraft. Look bad, work good, Tormas says, wrinkled face creasing as he delivers a wink. He picks up the receiver handle and offers it to me. We might need some time, says the colonel, stepping between me and Tormas. We have to check a lot of frequencies to see which ones are still operational. We could just use the emergency transmit, I say, jabbing a finger to the big red button set in the main panel. Schaefer turns on me, eyes narrowing in annoyance. I am sure our hosts have other tasks to attend to. We should not impose on their time. It's the politest I've ever known him to be, and the look on his face is trying to convey something, but I'm just not getting it. I'm about to speak again when he gently but pointedly closes his hand around mine on the pickup set, stopping me from activating the switch. There are security protocols to observe. We must be sure not to betray any confidences. Yeah, protocols, I say, finally getting his meaning. He doesn't want the wasters listening in, and I can see the sense of it. I remember the training drill. Heretics listen to careless whispers and all that. The colonel starts to fiddle with the broadcast dials, not doing anything in particular, while I turn back on our company. This could take a long time, Orsky. I'm sure you need to make ready to move your camp. Those orcs won't be far from here by sunfall. It is wise to move on, yes, she says. I already tell others, but extra hands make quicker work. Harla, why don't you make sure everybody is ready to leave when we've made contact? The Underhiver looks away for a second. Too late I realize he's actually scratching the eye. He's actually catching the eye of the people behind him. Harla shoves Karst into Tormas and jumps forward, dragging a piece of broken bayonet from his pocket to hold against the old man's throat. The others pull out pistols and take aim. 5 of them, 2 of the colonel's team. You've been busy, Harla, I say, spinning a little conspiracy, it seems. Norst! Gordandi, stand down, barks the colonel. Not taking orders, Colonel, says the one called Gordandi. She gestures for Schaefer to move away from the box. Not now. Everything's gone to shit and back. Can't let you hand us over to the authorities, Colonel, says Harla. He takes a step back, pulling Tormas with him. turning so he can say Orskia and the other two elders. Behind him, one of the other conspirators pulls down the tent flap, hiding us from view. One chance, Cage. I'd rather take my chances with the infernal servants of Greenskins than the commissars. I reckon you feel the same. Not sure, I reply, rubbing my shin. What's your plan? Saw a drag sled out there. Gonna load it with supplies. Then head north. Take this kilometer or so with us, just to keep everyone honest. Schaefer stays here, says Norris, darting a murderous glance at the colonel. Well, we do him right now. Either way's good. You are making a mistake, says the colonel, squaring up to the group, slowly folding his arms. We need as many able bodied fighters as we can get, so I will ignore this transgression just once. You're not in any position to offer anything, you crazy fragger, says Gerdandi. What are you heading back to? Says Harla, directing the words to me, with an odd glance at Karst. She's not part of the conspiracy, her look of horror fixed on her face. Even as she continues talking. At best, there's nothing happening. Anarchy, panic, an army in full retreat. Worse, it's a commissar's kiss the moment they see us. I laugh at this slang, referring to the summary execution dispatched by officers in the Imperial Commissariat. At least the skull caps will make it quick, I reply. I grimace and shrug. Not sure the Neverborn won't drag you back to their abyssal hell and play with you for a few lifetimes. Gotta catch us first, right? Offers one of the other meatheads. Keep moving, like these wasters. Not get stuck in some bunker or trench just waiting for it to happen. Kinda tired of running, I tell them, hands moving to my hips. Hands up, Cage, barks Harla, pushing the tip of the shib into Tormus, a drop of blood leaking from the puncture. It'd be a shame to open up this old waster. What do you think, Orskia? I ask, lifting my hands away from my weapons. I think anyone threaten my people, their corpse cold before sunfall. Get fragged, says Norst. We don't have time to fight our way out. Nobody has to get hurt, says Harla. There's a few others that think the same way we do, in case you thought of trying to get a message out or something. Karst, I say, turning my full attention to her. What would you do for the bird man? Anything, she replies breathlessly. You saved me. If I went, you'd follow? I would, if that's what you wanted. Stop talking, says Harla. Start listening. I don't want to go with these people, Karst, I say. She takes my meaning immediately and launches herself at Harla. She pulls herself away from the elder and swipes the shiv toward her. The others can't help but react, their pistols moving towards the woman, throwing herself forward. It's quicker to pull my knife and charge forward than to draw my pistol and take aim. The point of the blade hits Norris under the ribs, in the front, right beneath the breastbone, and into his heart. Blood coats the inside of the tent, and I go down on top of him. The noise of a waster pistol is deafeningly loud behind me, and I see Harla stagger back, a hole in his right cheek. Another bang and a bullet rips through his eye to spread skull and brains off over one of his conspirators. The rip of a las pistol, the colonel's, I guess, sends a blue bolt of deadly energy into the chest of another, who falls back into her companion, just as he opens fire with his stubber. A bullet winds over my head as I rise, blade dripping with blood. The bark of the waster pistol sounds again, and the last mutineer goes down, chest bubbling with red froth. What about the ones outside? I say, looking from Orskia to the colonel. We don't know which ones know about this fragging bad idea. You can find out, says Schaefer, lowering his pistol. Get out there quickly. Pretend you've joined with Harla. I nod and duck through the tent flap, eyes scanning left and right to see who's paying attention. I catch the gaze of Saris, one of the colonel's troopers, who is too nonchalant as he lounges close to the camp entrance. I hang back by the tent and motion him over. I heard a shot. What happened? He whispers, starting to duck towards the tent flap. I grab his arm and stop him. Schaefer's dead, and one of the elders. I push him away and see the drag sled Harla mentioned. I point to it with my blood-stained knife and then glance around, checking to see where the wasters are and the rest of my people are. Get the others and guard that sled. We're leaving in a hurry. He swallows, nods, and heads off in a swirl of ash and dust. As soon as his back is turned, I duck back into the elder's tent. I see Orskia and Elg crouching over Karst, who's lying next to Harla's body. Moxie is dabbing at Torma's neck with a rag. The colonel is glowering at the box set, from which a wisp of smoke lazily rises from a hole in the front. Frag! It's not working, but it might be fixed, growls Schaefer. Right, I'll leave that to you. I round on Orskia. Is there any way out of here? Yes, she tells me, gesturing to the back of the tent. In the next couple of minutes, there's going to be a group of people hanging around the sled, about 5 meters left of the tent entrance. They're all yours. Orskia stands up and taps Maxie on the shoulder. The two of them disappear into the shadow behind the box set, and I turn my attention to Karst. How is she? I ask, kneeling beside Elg, whose bloodied hand holding a wad of rags against the side of Karst's chest. The uphiver is pale, eyes fluttering under the lids, breathing shallow, and bubbling blood with each exhalation. The stab in lung. I cast a look at Tormaz. Can you help? Maybe, he says with a shrug. I see some better. I see some dead. Not good enough, I growl. I stand up and pace over to the colonel, where he has the back of the box set open, prodding suspiciously at the innards with the point of a combat knife. My next words are cut off by a sudden fusillade of gunfire outside, accompanied by shouts and screams cut short. A few moments later, the tent flap lifts to reveal Orskia with a satisfied look in her eye. Traitor's dead. She looks at the colonel. You want parts from the other Vox? It may help, he says. I stop her as she moves to leave again. We need a Medicaid facility, I say, looking towards Karst. Aid station, field hospital. So I want to say a couple things. First of all, I realized something which is pretty great. It took me this whole time to realize it. There's no such thing as a compass. Almost all their problems will be solved with just one compass. I don't think compasses exist. I think Lasgun shoot red. I mean, if it's blue, that just means his is like more blue, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that what the colonel's doing right now. I don't know if he can just like do that. I don't know if he can just fix a radio set, a box set. I don't know if that's even like a thing. I don't think that's even a thing to be. Now, I don't. He certainly wasn't formally trained to fix the set. That's obvious, but he probably might have through his many years had enough. Like, because he's like how many years old? 300 years old. So, I don't think radios are that They can't be that complicated. They can't be that complicated. I mean, But like the thing is like if if my Xbox broke and someone's like, "Hey, I'll give you an Xbox. Do you want this Xbox to help you repair your Xbox?" I probably wouldn't. It wouldn't help me that much. I did it. Oh no. I tell you, all I'm gonna go south. We look for medical supplies. Take some. You can have maybe. It's not the supplies, it's the expertise, I tell her. Any of your people know how to fix her up? No, she says with a sigh. I take you to nearest defenses, 2 hour travel. Take her on sled. Maybe she'll survive that long. A squeal from the far end of the tent tears everyone's attention away from Karst. Schaefer steps back from the box, glaring as sparks leap from the exposed workings. Against expectation, the frequency dial glows into life, and the speaker thrums with power, broken by intermittent crackles and squawks. The colonel stops to adjust the channel, and a fresh flurry of sparks erupts from the whining machine, sending him retreating several times. Transmitter is broken, but the receiver seems to be working, he tells us, rubbing his chin. So, no calling for a rescue, I say. There should be a master beacon left after the retreat, he says, looking back at the box. In such a hasty withdrawal, some units, patrols, air missions can get left behind. There would be broadcasts with coordinates of the muster points. If we can pick up one of those, we can find out where to go. He crouches down and starts adjusting the set, brow nodding in consternation. A variety of mechanical warbles and moans emanate from the box set, interspersed with sequences of rapid clicking. Have stuffed wound, Elg says, dragging my attention back to Karst. Lot of blood, bandage. He and Maxie start to drag the bodies of the mutineers out of the tent. They're joined by the other wasters, voices raised in concerned inquiry. If you find where to go, says Orskia, nodding toward the colonel in the box set, I take you there. Why? I ask quietly. Not that I don't appreciate it, but why have you helped us so much? I am not sure, she says with a conflicted expression, part confused and part amused. It seems harder not to help. Orska flicks a hand towards Karst. Maybe I help them, not you, she continues. I see you not leave them, but I know you think about it, yes? Once or twice, I admit it, looking away. But they believe in me. She certainly believe you special. This one throw herself a knife for you. I know. I look at Karst. She's not the first casualty in my account. And I've already fragged the odd ally to stay alive, but this feels different. She knew what she was doing, taking on Harla, and what would happen. She did it not because I tricked her into it, or because it was just the violence of battle. Karst is dying because she was willing to give her life away for me. That's a pretty heavy load to take on board, and I knew it would happen. That's what fuels the guilt that's nagging me. Guilt, I might add, is not a common acquaintance of mine. I've always believed in taking your chances, and I've certainly put my neck on the line a few times, enough that I don't feel I've shirked the risks others have taken. But when I spoke to her, all about how I told her to attack Harla, it was in the firm knowledge that she would probably get hurt and even die. And I did it anyway. It's a bad situation, says Tormus, perhaps guessing my thoughts as I stare silently at the dying woman. The old man pats me on the shoulder. You do what is needed. A sudden burst of singing has us all jumping with shock. Angelic voices fill a tent, cut through with static but unmistakably a hymnal of the Emperor. I don't recognize the song, but just hearing the notes, the voices singing in praise, gives me my spirit a boost. What is that? Asks Elg. It is beautiful. I shake my head while the colonel makes some fine adjustments, cutting out the interference. He sits back on his heels, head cocked to one side as he listens. The Alma Imperator Batalica, he says. What day is it? The date, I ask. I have no idea. The Underhive has its own circles and routines, divorced from the day and night cycle of the outside, and certainly not owing anything to the ecclesiarchy or Astra Militarum calendars. It would be St. Sebastian's Day, perhaps, says Schaefer, standing up. He is lost in thought for a moment, or perhaps caught in the hymnal, and his eyes find mine with fierce intensity. There was an Adeptus Serratus bastion in this area, the Abbey of St. Silva of the Holy Blade. Any look fine in the other broadcasts? Nope, this is it. I think it could be an automated prayer beacon. Nothing to suggest the Abbey is still garrisoned. It's all we've got. I turn to Orskia. Do you know where this is? A fortress. Would have lots of pictures of the Emperor, flags, women warriors in power armor. Not seen it, says the Dune Seer. I not think any others have. It's type of place we not go close to, too dangerous. Colonel? I say, with more hope than expectation. Do you know where the Abbey is? No. Your followers took my maps, he adds with a glare. It was somewhere in the Gamma sector of the Archean battlefront, but that covers a 100-kilometer expanse. Before I can say anything else, a scream outside has everyone racing for the door. I dash into camp on the heels of Orskia, las pistol in my hand. At first, I can't make out what's happening. There are underhivers and wasters everywhere, shouting and shooting, seemingly at each other. It's only when I see a uniformed trooper lunging at one of the wasters that I see a bullet hole in the trooper's head, her mouth holding open. Unable to believe what I'm seeing, I stand rooted on the spot as my gaze flicks from one assailant to another and another, all wearing trooper uniforms or hybrid gear, blood-stained and bullet-ridden. Emperor, protect us, I whisper, watching as Orskia opens her fire, her bullet thudding into the chest of a dead guardsman, shambling towards us. A pus-like fluid leaks from the holes, but the animated cadaver doesn't stop. I recognize the face of Harla as another of the walking dead heaves itself toward me with a rolling shamble, one foot scuffing through the ash, dead eyes staring right at me. I open fire, putting a dozen lasbolts into the head and face of the dead thing, firing until it falls down. Almost nothing left of its torso and skull. Others are doing the same, piling fire into the shambling creatures. Screams of panic, punctuating the gunshots. I see a couple of wasters lying on the ground, close to the drag sled, throats torn open. One of them rolls its head towards me, glassy eyes fixed on my face. Emperor, damn it! I snarl, shooting again as the corpse creature clambers on its knees and then feet, ignoring the red blasts, plucking at clothes and flesh. Tormus appears out of nowhere, a long-bladed spear in hand. With him come several other wasters, likewise armed. He slashes the head of the closest thing, then adjusts his grip to plunge the blade to the falling monster's chest. His companions hack and slash the remaining corpse walkers, screaming in anger and fear as they chop them down. With a roar, Nazarek plunges out of the ashen gloom, its chopper burying itself deep in the neck of the first dead walker. Even as I'm just starting to take in the bizarre scene, a handful of wasters dash into view from the left, shouting their lungs out and gesturing to the fog. I can't understand a word of what they're saying, but their actions speak far louder. I don't wait for a translation, but duck back into the elder's tent, noting that the colonel hasn't come out. I find him crouched by the Voxet, twisting piece of wire aerial in hand, moving it left and right. The reception is better in some directions than others, he says, lifting the aerial. We can use this to follow the broadcast back to its source. The dead are coming back to life. I pant, not able to believe the words I'm saying. And I think the camp's under attack too. The dead? The colonel stands up and grabs the box set under one arm. Artificial protests shrieking from the speaker and grill. He flicks it off and heads toward me. The demon influence is spreading. Outside, the elders and Orskia are rallying the wasters, while my people and the remaining troopers are gathering. Some of them armed, others wandering with dazed expressions, unable to cope with trauma after trauma. You all need to come with us, announces the colonel, striding up to Tormus. It is no longer safer here in the wastes. This is how we live, replies Elg, waving a hand in the tents, people in sheds. You not want us. No home for us in the army. I am colonel of the Astral Militarum. I am empowered to make you authorized auxilia. His next words are directed at Orskia. This incursion may be too much, even for the armies of the Emperor. Your best chance of surviving is to get off world. I can't arrange that. Why would you? Schaefer is forced to step back as a group of wasters bustles past, carrying armfuls of more weapons for their companions. I swore an oath to defend the realms and servants of the Emperor, he says. Do you believe in the might of the God Emperor and the majesty of terror over all things? We are loyal, Orskia replies. Not loyal to hivers, but we praise Emperor same as you. Then you are under his divine protection. The colonel turns his stare to me. And right now, that protection takes form of an Adeptus Sororitas Battle Abbey. We go,